How are we on the video here?
Yeah, we look good. And Adam, we're live on the air now.
All right. Hey, welcome to, I think this is QA session number 3, Joe. We did one last year, and we did one earlier this year. I'm really excited to get back and to chat with people. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
You just came back from a whirlwind trip, didn't you?
Yeah, I played golf in Scotland for a week, and then went to Switzerland, and then went to Mexico for the beach. So the vacation is over.
I took a business trip to Vietnam and Istanbul and Singapore, and I came back with COVID after being in a plane for 60 hours. So I'm recovered now, thank God. But I think we're looking forward to doing this update. We have a couple of updates on some product developments, and we're really excited to engage with some of our listeners and see what's going on. So, Rick, do we have a caller?
I think we do, and I think you're now on the air.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, hi, you're live. What's your question or comment?
I just wanted to listen in.
Okay. Well, the best.
Facebook to do that?
Yeah, you need to use Facebook to listen into the broad. Did you? Are you?
I didn't see it was live, so I'll go there. I'm sorry.
Do you use the protocol?
My husband is using it.
How's he doing?
Well, he's just gotten started on it, so I just wanted to get some more. We're not really sure because he hasn't had a complete diagnosis of his cancer yet.
Okay. Well, definitely log into the Facebook group if you're a part of the group, and you should see the live broadcast right there at the on the screen.
Since
I'm not seeing it, but
there's some people who are not members of the group yet, and so they can't see it. So I promised that we would post a recording of this on my personal Facebook page, as well as the group,
and the blog also. We'll get this up there
and get it on the blog. Actually, that'll be the best way to get it. Will be to go to the blog at mycancerstory.rocks.
All right. Well, thanks for calling. I appreciate you joining.
Okay.
So again, if anybody would like to join or has a question or a comment, we would love to hear from you. You can either post your question on the Facebook feed right now or call 405-694-4729. We have some questions that have already been asked, Joe. A couple here. This went out on, we had problems logging in, so this went out under my name on the Facebook group. So I don't know how widely distributed it was, but we did get some questions here. Let's see. I guess down here.
Well, you might need to take this one. It says, please explain the protocol, when to take, when not to take, during chemo, blah, blah, blah. So,
okay. So let's talk about the different products here. So we have...
in addition to fenbendazole.
In addition to fenbendazole. And some people are actually taking mebendazole. We might want to address that too. It's later on in the Q&A session. So the Pathway 1, 2, and 3 came out of, we've been developing technologies at Ultra Botanica. We're a biotech company. We're focused on different technologies that we've developed in conjunction with the University of Oklahoma and some labs at the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation. We've had collaborations with cancer researchers and inflammation researchers for the last 15 years. Even though Ultra Botanica is only 8 years old, my research and my collaborations go back much further than that. The products actually we had a version of Onco Pathway 1 prior to our discussions with Joe 2.5 years ago now, and then we started a discussion. So it was news to us that Joe was recommending a curcumin product and some other products as part of his protocol. And when we met, we learned about what you were doing, and I think based upon our discussions, you thought what we had was working a lot better than what you had been recommending.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate this again. I'm not financially involved in Ultra Botanica. I just did a deep dive over a 5-year period to come up with the items in the protocol, and then stumbled on to Ultra Botanica and found that every piece of the puzzle, they were doing it way better than anybody else on the market, particularly in absorption into the bloodstream.
Yeah, and so the basis of our technology is how do you improve the absorption of some of these compounds, and a lot of the compounds are what we call polyphenols, and polyphenols are compounds that when they get extracted, and even in their natural state in the plant, they aggregate. And so our technology simply solubilizes them, turns them into molecules, and we attach them to proteins that like ornaments on a Christmas tree. So as the body digests the protein, those molecules are freely available to absorb into the body and be used by the cells. Because when they're in a crystal, they don't dissolve, and if they don't dissolve, then those molecules aren't available. So pathway 1 is a combination of very specific cannabinoids. And when we talk about a full spectrum, so there's a little bit of THC, and it's below the federal levels of THC that are allowable. So it's below actually 0.2% THC. And then, but it has all of the other cannabinoids, and I can talk about why we chose the different cannabinoids that we chose. And then it has a frankincense extract, and that's based upon the research of a guy named H.K. Lin out of the University of Oklahoma. He was actually one of the founding scientists for Young's Living Oil, which a lot of people recognize and know about Young's Living. I should mute my phone too.
Yeah, I'm going to mute it.
Whoops. There we go. I have a radio set up there. And so we use a frankincense extract based upon the work of H.K. Lin, and then we have a nanoparticle delivery system that specifically was designed also at the University of Oklahoma. So that replaced your original CBD product that you were recommending, and it's based upon a lot of research that we did on the cannabinoids and frankincense and this nanoparticle system. So a lot of people ask why. There's a couple of questions that people ask, and the big question is, why do we have so much cannabinoid in there? Your recommendation before was 50 milligrams of CBD per day, and now based upon the dosing that they're getting with Pathway 1, it's more like 250 milligrams of cannabinoids per day.
Right.
And that's more in line with the protocols that we've seen on the that have worked in a called Rick Simpson oil. Have you heard about Rick Simpson oil?
Sure, it's a 1-to-1 relationship between THC and CBD.
Yep. And a lot of people are taking a gram of THC CBD combination, which I don't know how people can even walk around with that much THC in their body.
Well, actually, over a period of several weeks, the CBD obfuscates the psychotropic effects of the THC.
Right. So people can manage it. Still, it's a lot.
But I don't recommend that. I really believe that these cannabinoids in the non-THC spectrum are what really is, particularly the terpenes, is what's affecting cancer.
Right, and we actually use a cryogenic extraction of the cannabinoids at our own facility in Tulsa, where we make sure that we preserve the native terpenes, as well as something that most people don't know about, is that we actually preserve the acidic forms of the cannabinoids. And we've done our own research to show that it's the acidic forms of the cannabinoids that actually have the most bioactive effect on cells in the body. So it's a combination of the cannabinoids plus the frankincense and the nanoparticle system. Overall, there's about 7 grams of cannabinoids, 7.5 grams of cannabinoids. And the second question we get is, why is it so expensive? And it's actually it's very reasonably priced when you look at it from the point of view of how much cannabinoid is in there. A typical 1 gram cannabinoid product is probably going to cost you about $60, right? And so we have 7 grams of cannabinoid in this. And so that should be priced about $420 just based upon market pricing. But we actually have the cannabinoids plus frankincense and plus all of these other ingredients in there. The second product that we have is the curcumin quercetin product, or some people say quercetin. But the curcumin quercetin product addresses cellular defects that can be present in cancer cells, right? So there's a P53 is the big one. P53 is the cancer-killing gene, or the cancer-killing receptor or pathway in the cell. And a lot of cancer cells actually protect the P53 pathway or diminish it. And curcumin and quercetin actually activate native or natural P53 in the cells, enabling them to die.
And what's significant about that is that the PhD scientists that studied fenbendazole have proven that one of the three pathways that fenbendazole is working is it is also stimulating new production of P53. When people get cancer, typically one of two things has happened. Either their P53 has mutated to the point where it can't kill cancer anymore, or their level of P53 has dropped to such a low titer level that it just can't kill the cancer. And both the ONCO2 pathway and the fenbendazole work together in fixing that problem.
Yeah, hold on. I need to correct a technical issue. I will be right back.
Okay.
I apologize. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
I'll answer some of these other questions here. Somebody asked if this works for leukemia, and the answer is I think so. We know it's been. We have quite a few success stories with the other blood-borne cancers, such as lymphoma, multiple myeloma, and I'm pretty certain we have a few success stories with leukemia as well. Somebody asked, he was in the middle of explaining the protocol, and they're asking when to take, when not to take, i.e. from, we've always advised that if you're on active chemo days of taking chemo, you should skip pathway 2, the curcumin. And otherwise, the fenbendazole and pathways 1 and onco 1, 2, and 3 should all be taken 7 days a week without fail, indefinitely, if you're an active cancer patient. Many people go back to 3 days a week, 4 days off, when they're either doing it as a preventative protocol or if they're already in remission. And Adam, one of the questions being asked here is,
You want to ask Joe?
how many days before or after chemo should they be free to take ONCO2?
So we recommend at least a buffer of 1 day.
Okay.
And that's during the active phase. We strongly recommend if you can, talk to your oncologist about these, or even better, get involved on your medical team, an integrative physician that understands cancer, or a naturopath, or even, and best of all worlds would be an integrative oncologist, and they can definitely give you very prescriptive information as to when to take onco pathway 2 or not. But in general, we do not recommend taking pathway 2 on the days that you're on chemo unless your oncologist says go for it. There are some chemotherapies or immune modulating therapies that actually work much better with curcumin and quercetin,
right.
But we're not doctors, and we're not allowed to give that kind of advice.
Adam, we have a call.
Oh, okay. Who's on?
Okay. Robert, I think you're on the air.
Hello.
Hey, Robert. Welcome to the Q&A session.
No, my name's Ron.
Oh, Ron.
sorry.
Hey, Ron. Close. What's up,
Yeah,
Ron?
actually,
Hello.
Ron, you're on.
Oh, I think I may have just accidentally.
yeah,
Oh,
so I have, and this is a question for Joe. Yeah.
Go ahead, Ron.
Ron, you're
So
breaking up. Ron, you're breaking up.
Yeah, I think that where I'm delayed, or you're delayed somehow.
Are you hearing your own voice, Ron? Is that the problem?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you just try asking the question without, but don't listen to the response there.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ron.
Okay. So here's the question for you, Joe. I've been doing the original protocol for approximately 3 years, and I have been NED for a couple of years, and over the time, I've gone to 5 days a week with the original protocol, and somewhere along the lines I dropped the vitamin E, but I continue to be NED, and my game plan is to just continue with the original protocol that I'm taking unless I show signs that I'm no longer NED, and then kind of ramping up to the new protocol.
Yeah.
What do you think about that plan?
Well, Ron, I would prefer you go to the new protocol because the CBD in the old protocol is really almost worthless compared to this new one. And the curcumin that was in the original protocol, only about 10% of it is getting uptaken into your bloodstream.
Okay.
And then the Onco 3 wasn't even part of the original protocol, but it needed to be added because of work that Jane McClellan did over in the UK. So I honestly believe all three should be done with the fenbendazole. Now, with respect to being NED and in remission,
That's awesome, by the way. Yeah.
Then a lot of people have cut back to 3 days a week just as a maintenance level. But 5 days a week's great. I mean, but I recommend, even as a preventative medicine, I recommend all three with the fenbendazole.
And so, do the latest protocol. Since I'm NED, can I do the latest protocol 3 days a week?
Yep, that's what I do. I've been NED for now 5 years, and I only take it 3 days a week.
So we do have a different cannabinoid product for people that are in remission. It's called Maintain. It's a lot less expensive than the Pathway One. So if you want to save a little bit of money, you can go to the Maintain product, which is instead of the Pathway One. It's just a more dilute form of Pathway One. It's not as intense of an intervention. But for people that want to maintain their NED status, that's a good supplement to add into your regime. The only other thing
can I see that that different product for folks who are NED on your website?
Yeah, it's part of the Onco Adjunct product group. So if you go to our website, you'll be able to see it there.
Okay, good. I really appreciate.
The only other thing I would recommend, Joe, and this is something we've been thinking about for a while, is adding a good beta-glucans product for people that are NED. There's been some really interesting research coming out of Japan that shows that people that take a beta-glucans product after they go into remission very rarely actually have a recurrence of cancer.
Wow, very cool. I didn't know that.
So we're looking at that, at potentially adding that in later into our product grouping. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, I'm going to get off here, and I thank you, Joe, and all you folks for the work you're doing.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
Bye.
So here's a question I don't know how to answer because I've never heard this before. But somebody said, would Pathway 1 interfere with immunotherapy, and that there's a Is it true that cannabis consumption during immunotherapy correlates with poor clinical outcome? I've never heard that before.
So these are great questions. Some immunotherapy might be influenced by cannabinoids. We haven't heard of anything specifically. So the cannabinoid system is a epigenetic switching system. So it has to do with modifying specific genes at the nucleus level. These are questions that you should ask to your oncologist. They might specifically tell you that if you're taking this immunotherapy, do not take a cannabinoid product. And if that's the advice that they're giving you, we strongly recommend taking that advice. But Joe, I haven't heard specifically of an immunotherapy that is contraindicated for cannabinoids, but it's possible.
Right.
Was there a second part to that question?
Well, no, it's one we've already answered.
About how many days? Yeah.
How many days before or after when you're taking a chemo, and that's 1 day before.
And 1 day after.
And 1 day after, right.
Rick,
Okay, we have a call. This is Jen on the line. Hello, Jen.
Hey, Jen. Welcome to the show.
Yes.
Or the Q&A. What's going on?
Yeah, hi. Okay, so both of my parents actually passed away from cancer, and I'm wondering, can my sisters and I actually take the protocol as a preventative measure? Because we've all had some scary experiences, and given the fact that both of my parents passed away from horrible things, I'm kind of wondering, are we able to actually take the entire protocol, to kind of maybe stop like bad things from actually happening?
Absolutely. I recommend all the time, every day, virtually, to people who never had cancer, but especially if you've had it in your genetic lineage, take the protocol, the fenbendazole and Onco 1, 2, and 3, 3 days a week instead of 7 days a week. And I think it's a really wise prophylactic.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
Do you mind me asking what kind of cancer your parents had?
Yes. My mom had small cell lung cancer, and it actually didn't even start in her lungs. It actually developed in her kidneys. And my dad actually had some type of cancer. They were never able to actually pinpoint it, but they thought it was either liver cancer or some kind of blood type of cancer.
Well, I'm a small cell lung cancer survivor, so I wish we could have done something for your mom back then.
Yeah.
Well, she actually did start your protocol. Just unfortunately, we just actually found out about it a little too late. But I do believe it actually helped her to actually have a couple more months with us. So
that's great.
I cannot tell you how grateful I actually am, because we did get to experience, some good times with her, and I could actually tell that it really was helping her. And doctors and that were just completely stunned. But unfortunately, just with her, it was just a little too late.
Yeah. Unfortunately, many of the failures I hear about is somebody waited until
the last minute.
The last 2 weeks, and haven't heard of a success in that case yet. But
so just for the prophylactics, just to reiterate, we had a call with Ron earlier. You can actually use the Maintain product for prophylaxis rather than having to use the Onco Pathway 1. So I would do Maintain, Pathway 2, and Pathway 3 for good dietary support to help your body if you're at risk for these kinds of issues.
Cool.
Okay.
That's all the questions on this sheet. Is there anything else we need to cover here?
Well, So we had the question. I only got to talking about Pathway 2 for the reason why it's in the protocol and what was updated there. And so we didn't have quercetin before in your recommendation. So we added quercetin because that addressed cellular defects at STAT3 and TLR4, which can also be out of balance in certain cancer cells. And these are pathways that Jane McClelland recommends to address. And we then added some boswellic acids in there because those also support different pathways that can be out of balance in cancer patients. The reason why we don't recommend pathway 2 during chemotherapy is because the curcumin absorbs so well in pathway 2, it actually can detoxify the toxic chemicals that are being put into your body. So it saves the cells from the toxic overload that the chemotherapy is designed to induce. And that's the whole idea of a lot of chemotherapies, is they poison the cells to the point that the cancer cells die. And the idea is that cancer cells are more fragile because they're trying to grow so fast that they're more susceptible to a toxic shock, and that they can die that way. And curcumin very specifically detoxifies cells, so you don't want to take it. You absolutely don't want to take it during chemo unless your oncologist says, hey, it's a good idea to take a curcumin supplement while you're taking this protocol. And then the last part, which is new, and you mentioned this, Joe, is the berberine. And this really speaks to Jane's body of work, and she's just an amazing researcher. How long have you known Jane?
Well, I did a mammoth amount of research when I first got diagnosed, and I ran into Jane within 2 weeks of that research and called her up and chatted her up. We've been friends ever since. It's her work that led to the formation of the group called Care Oncology, which has a 4-drug cocktail for cancer, and one of the drugs in that cocktail and came from Jane's work was metformin, which is a diabetic drug to lower blood sugar. And as we all know, all cancers have a voracious appetite for sugar.
So what was the idea there? Is if we deny sugar to the cancer cells?
Yes.
They would actually, they'd be starving.
Yeah. So, let's go back and remember the 3 pathways that fenbendazole is working.
Sure.
One of the 3 pathways that fenbendazole is working is shutting down the cancer cell's ability to metabolize sugar. And so if you can come at it from one angle of affecting the metabolism of sugar at the cancer cell level, and on the other hand, reduce your blood sugar so that there's less sugar to even have access, that's a kind of a double whammy. And the reason Adam developed berberine in Onco3 is it is a non-FDA drug, supplement that replicates metformin and lowers blood sugar.
Berberine actually works on the similar pathways. It's not a drug, it's a nutritional supplement that modifies blood sugar metabolism in a similar way to how metformin does, but just in a natural form. So it can and it does modify sugar metabolism as a dietary supplement. And what was these? There's it's really interesting, Joe. You said fenbendazole works to influence sugar metabolism. What are the other 2 elements that the fenbendazole works on?
Well, and then we'll go into it. I'll answer that, and we'll go into a discussion about how mebendazole differs from
that would be good.
Fenbendazole as well. So, researchers in India, 3 PhD scientists, literally spent their entire careers working on fenbendazole. What, why, how, when. Mm-hmm. And they determined that every cancer cell is made up in the inside of the cell of things called microtubules. If you visually think of a pillar holding up a...
It's like the skeleton inside the cell, isn't
right,
it?
Think of a pillar holding up a wall. Well, those things are not only structural to the cancer cell, but they're also necessary to be able to divide and multiply rapidly. And fenbendazole is literally knocking out those microtubule pillars so that the cancer cell collapses and can't replicate again. The second one is, and this one is really interesting, and as we just discussed, is it literally just shuts down the cancer cell's ability to metabolize sugar.
Right.
And then the third one, which we've already touched on, is they proved that fenbendazole produces new wild type
P53?
P53.
Ah.
And so there's three things happening at once. And what's interesting is now the protocol, as the new protocol, has other items that are affecting P53 positively, and other items that are reducing the cancer cell's ability to metabolize sugar. And I think
So it's like a double whammy,
yeah,
right?
it is.
And
And so the real question about mebendazole versus fenbendazole, I'm not a scientist, but I've been doing this for 5 years, and I've seen a lot of information here. I am personally convinced that fenbendazole is a superior product to mebendazole. Mebendazole happens to be FDA approved, and any doctor can prescribe it. And that's why a lot of people are not comfortable, taking a veterinary product, and they switch to mebendazole because it's a human product that can get prescribed by their doctor. I personally believe fenben's better, but I don't have scientific proof of that. That's my opinion.
so both are used as anti-helminth medications.
Yeah,
they're anti-worm medications.
Yeah, there's 8 drugs in the anti-helminth category that are basically intestinal parasite drugs. And it's interesting. I don't want to get into conspiracy theories and all of that, but I have uncovered that medical doctors in the Army were prescribing fenbendazole for cancer to Vietnam soldiers.
What?
In the 60s. There is evidence that another one of these category of drugs was prescribed in the 80s for cervical cancer. And so
this was like the small groups of doctors that kind of figured this out, and they were doing this on their own, off-label.
Yeah, as early as the 60s. Yeah, really crazy.
Where did you hear that?
I've talked to a patient who was a Vietnam veteran, and he worked in the hospital. Over in Hanoi or somewhere. And,
oh my gosh!
And he told me this story. The 3 scientists from India, when I was able to establish a relationship with them, they let me know that they were working at MD Anderson, my cancer hospital, 20 years ago, and their work 20 years ago at MD Anderson was on fenbendazole. So it's interesting. It will never get approved as a human drug because it's 20 years off patent, and nobody's going to spend the money to do a human clinical trial only to have a generic competition the next day.
Unless we do something kind of crazy to make it kind of patentable again. We have a question that came through Facebook. So Brandy wants to know if the protocol works for brain mets. The tumor has edema and vessels surrounding it. And this is not for Brandy, it's for her friend.
Well, as interesting as that question is, the lady who is literally ground zero for my story was a research scientist at Merck on the veterinary side. And
so tell us a little bit about that story. I know it's part. You talk about this extensively, but I'd love hearing it. This story.
Like a lot of things in life, sometimes serendipity and accidental discovery happens. She was doing cancer research using mice, and she'd implanted cancer in all different body parts of mice: brain, stomach, liver, pancreas, etc. And her entire mouse population came down with intestinal parasites, and she was about to lose her research. If you went out to any zoo in the world, you would find that fenbendazole is piled up by literally truckload high piles because they give it to every single animal in the animal kingdom, from a tiny guppy fish all the way up to an elephant and everything in between. So she gave her entire mouse population for cancer research fenbendazole to clear them of their intestinal parasites, and accidentally found out that it was curing their cancer too.
So all the cancers disappear.
And so specific to this question, the same lady, unfortunately, came down with 4-stage glioblastoma, brain cancer, wrapped around her brain stem, and it was inoperable. She was told to go home and hire hospice, and she decided, what the heck? I have nothing to lose, and so she started taking fenbendazole, and 8 weeks later, she was all clear.
Oh my gosh! And how did you hear about her directly?
No. So, I'm a sports nut, and my alma mater, and I was on my alma mater's sports website, and a large animal veterinarian in my state basically said, hey, if anybody has cancer, I have an interesting story to tell them. And he knew this lady, and he had done some research with her on large animals, horses and cattle. And he knew her story. So this was the 24 hours after I had Mets head to toe, from my neck to my bones to my skeleton to my liver, my pancreas, everywhere. And I was told there's 0 chance of survivability and less than 6 months to live, and go home and get your affairs in order and hire hospice. And this large animal veterinarian told me this story 24 hours later. And I had the same reaction she did. What the heck? I have nothing to lose. So I started taking it, and now it's 5 years later.
5 years later. We have a call, Rick.
Yes, we do. And I believe, Robert, you're on the air now.
Robert, thanks for joining the Q&A.
Yes, thank you for listening to me. I have a Klatskin tumor. This involves the liver and the bile ducts, and I was diagnosed in 2021, and it was later that year that I learned about the Joe Tippens protocol, and I started taking that in October of 2021. And in this time, my tumor continues to grow. And my question is, will it take longer for a Klatskin tumor to respond to the protocol?
Well, I'm not a doctor or a scientist.
Right.
And so I actually, that's the first time I've ever heard that word, Klatskin. So I don't know. You know, in all of our success stories coming in, there's now hundreds. I think we're over 1,000.
Yeah.
I think we're over 1,000 now. What we don't know is the denominator. We know what the numerator is. We don't know what the denominator is. And
Right.
while everybody is reported in as success stories with all different cancer subtypes, it leads me to believe that it's cancer agnostic. And another side story I would tell you is we have some really amazing stories of incurable terminal cancers that it took 18 months before the effects started to kick in.
Wow.
And that was those are pancreatic cancers, 4th stage pancreatic, and of the 7 that I've documented, 5 of them still have pancreatic cancer. but they've now lived 3-4 years beyond what the doctor said they were going to, because it's just kind of kept the cancer at bay and from keeping from. In 2 cases, and this is important to your question, in 2 cases, they were just keeping it at bay, resuming a normal lifestyle way beyond the 3 months they were given to live. And then miraculously, after, in one case, 18 months and another one in 20 months, it just kicked in, and they're all of a sudden NED from 4-stage pancreatic, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know your subtype of cancer. I don't know what it means. But again, the downside risk is literally 0.
Yeah.
And so the only question you need to ask yourself is, why not?
Yeah, why not? The clot skin tumors are not treatable by standard methods, and some of the newer methods being developed by modern medicine, I'm not sure if the results are all that good either.
Yeah.
It is a relatively rare cancer.
Are you doing the protocol 7 days a week?
Yes, I am.
And you're doing the new protocol with Onco 1, 2, and 3?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, you know what?
The only other thing, so there's the one product that the Advamar, which is the fermented wheat germ extract.
Yes.
So we that's one thing that's you haven't really talked a lot about, but we do carry it. Not as we don't make it. It's the only product that we carry that we don't make. You that might be something to consider adding into his protocol.
Yeah, it's called Avomar, Avomar, and it's from Germany, and it is a German scientist who had amazing success with rare cancers using fermented wheat germ.
That's good to know. I live in Germany.
Oh, you do? Well, it's
this is the first I've heard of this.
Yeah, that's the original scientist was in Germany, and I think the product's made in Germany.
It's Hungarian, actually.
Oh, Hungarian. Okay.
Yeah, Avamar, Avemar. If you're looking for it, you can see it on our website, but obviously it would be cheaper for you to get it in Europe, where it's available pretty readily.
And one other thing, we set the dosage at 222 milligrams of fenbendazole a day. Because there was some, what I believe now, faulty research that said it could really wreck the liver. And that's why when I originally started 5 years ago, I was at 3 days a week. And since then, Johns Hopkins has done a toxicity trial that shows that it's 100 milligrams a day long term is safe. So because of that, we have a lot of people experimenting with higher dosages. And when I say experimenting, if you're able to get blood checked regularly and look at whether your liver enzymes are spiking or not, if they're not, you can play around with doubling the dosage from 222 to 450 or 500 milligrams of fenbendazole.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, I can give that I can give that a try. Definitely. That's I'm hoping to find some alternative options as well as the protocol.
So there's one since you're also in Germany, there's a clinic in Germany run by Weber Medical, and they do invasive laser therapy. Where they sensitize the tumors using different dyes. And they use they use actually our curcumin to sensitize different cancers. And what they found was that certain compounds actually preferentially absorb into the cancer cells, and those compounds actually absorb light at different wavelengths. and they can insert a catheter to where the tumor is to provide laser light to those cancer cells. And if they pre-sensitize them to specific wavelengths, they find that they can cause damage to those cancer cells directly, and this is done at a clinic that's licensed medically called Weber Medical. And if you're in Germany, I would strongly suggest looking them up. It's actually the same group that is our distributor in Germany. If you're buying the Pathway 1, 2, and 3, that's the group that is distributing that. And Dr. Weber is just an amazing integrative physician that you might want to reach out to and talk to about.
Okay. So I know the Weber Medical because I've ordered the product there, and I'm happy with it because I can take it. I don't feel sick. I had chemotherapy. I only had 4 doses, and it shut my kidneys down right away.
Oh, no.
All right.
Well, best of luck to you. And
Ron, thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling.
Well,
Rob.
thank you very much for your encouragement
Robert, yeah.
and your information, and thanks again for everything that you're doing.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks, Robert.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. We have just a couple other
Bye-bye.
questions. Yep.
Thank you. Shauna has a son with brain cancer and is on the protocol. He's stable. She wants to know how long to keep him on it. That's an easy answer, indefinitely. It's safe. The downside risk is virtually zero, and unless he's in NED, he should stay on it 7 days a week indefinitely and not cut back.
All right, so we have James McDonald is asking a question. Has a protocol been used in early-stage prostate cancer to avoid surgery?
Well, we probably one of the largest groupings of success stories out of the 1,000 success stories is prostate cancer. So I bet you there's over 100 prostate success stories. And the answer is yeah. I got a first cousin that went from a Gleason scale off the charts and a PSA off the charts and a huge problem, and he went all the way to NED just on the protocol. And that's close to home. That's a first cousin.
And he avoided surgery because of that.
He avoided surgery.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess work with your physician, and obviously.
Now, I always tell people, this cancer's terrible. Why not throw everything but the kitchen sink at it?
Yeah.
You know, I would do everything your traditional oncologist wants you to do and add this as an additive to that.
A lot of the surgeons, all that they see is cutting and doing surgery, right? So sometimes you need to take advisement from multiple different sources. So if possible, we would recommend getting an integrative physician on your team, because they can provide a different level of medical advice that an oncology surgeon or just an oncologist that only understands chemotherapy would recommend.
Well, if it's localized in the prostate, my father had that, and we demanded that he do proton therapy because it's so targeted.
And that works.
Yeah, it works very well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Rick, did we have another call?
Yes, we do. Julie, I think you're on the air now.
Hey, yes, this is Julie. I am calling in regarding my recent addition for my treatment plan of Tagrisso. And in talking to the oncologist pharmaceutical company that's prescribing that, they recommended that I not use berberine in addition to the Tagrisso. Everything else was fine.
So there's a reason they don't.
Tell them about the Fembendol.
There's a reason they don't.
But
I'm a little curious about it, why they wouldn't want you to lower your blood sugar. I mean, but I'm not a doctor. Or
What was the name of the medication?
Tagrisso.
Tagrisso. It's a targeted therapy.
Yeah.
Let me take a look here.
That's a new one for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if your doctors are saying that it is an interaction they don't like, they must have
A reason, yeah.
a reason for it. I'm seeing that there's actually positive interactions between berberine, and there's a natural product. Berberine synergizes with osimertinib, which is Tagrisso, preferentially. As a first-generation eutyrase, let's see. These findings collectively suggest that berberine can act as a natural existing MET inhibitor to synergize with osimertinib in overcoming acquired resistance caused by MET amplification.
This is my advice to a lot of people. We are all kind of programmed that doctors are God and they're never wrong. And I would literally ask your doctor to show you the research of why he says that. And I'd bet it'd be a 50-50 to me to whether he can produce that.
Yeah, I mean
Right.
that's a very fair question to ask them.
Everybody should never be afraid of asking anything of their doctors, and when they get pushback, they need to ask the right questions and keep asking questions.
So if you just type in Tagrisso and berberine, you'll find this article in PubMed that was published by Dr. Z. Chen. It's new. It's in 2022. So I would print that out and bring it to your oncologist and say, hey, this seems to indicate that they would actually help. What do you think? And let them respond from that perspective.
Yeah. Brian.
Okay. Yeah, I this has the pharmaceutical, so it hasn't even been through the doctor yet. But yeah. They just had some concerns with liver interaction. With
Well,
that.
once
That
again,
didn't make a lot of sense.
there is a lot of anecdotal
Interesting.
fright out there about fenbendazole and the liver, which I have Johns Hopkins toxicity trials proved wrong. So. One thing I do know is if you want to take a position on anything scientific, and there's somebody else with the opposite position, I can find you research papers that prove both sides. So it's really what you want to try to prove to yourself in many cases.
So what's interesting is that pharmaceutical companies tend to keep information that they don't make public. So the pharmaceutical company might have a database of people that are getting liver interactions that have been taking berberine, and they won't make that information public. So if the pharmaceutical company is telling you that berberine interacts with Tagrisso in a negative way, I would push back and ask, is this data that's published or not, and get more information. But a lot of times it might be reliable information that if they're seeing liver toxicity issues, it's something that's come up because their closed databases that aren't public is something that they've been made aware of.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I appreciate it, and I appreciate, Joe, you putting this information out here for us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Julie.
Brian Mattingly is interested in RSO versus CBD. RSO having 50% THC and 50% CBD, a lot of people just can't do it. I think there's been success stories all over the world with both. But I also believe that the guys at Ultra Botanica have zeroed in on the actual cannabinoids that are going to be the most effective, and it doesn't require THC to do that.
So if there are a lot of different RSO extractions out there, if you do want to just use RSO and you want to approximate kind of the benefits that we've generated in Pathway 1, you want to make sure that your RSO is non-decarb. In other words, not heated up to the point that it decarboxylates a lot of the cannabinoids. What we found is that it's the acidic forms of the cannabinoids that are the most beneficial. And we keep a ratio, we call it the golden ratio between the acidic and the non-acidic forms in our technology that allows for optimization. The other thing I would mention is that RSO doesn't include the frankincense component,
right,
and the nanoparticle delivery system that we've developed. So you're missing out if you just take the RSO of the frankincense, and we're not using just pure frankincense essential oil. We modify it. A lot of the monoterpenes in frankincense can be very irritating to the stomach and can cause nausea. I think some of the early people that bought our first version of Pathway 1 can attest to some of the unfortunate stomach issues that occurred. We've since depleted the monoterpenes out of the essential oil, and those fractions are actually what Dr. H.K. Lin said were the most beneficial in helping to improve health.
Cool.
Rick, do we have another call?
Adam, we do. We have Anthony. Hello, Anthony. I think you're on the air now.
Okay.
Hi,
How
Anthony.
you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Hello. Oh, pretty good. I have a question for Joe. If I've been diagnosed with bladder cancer, and I wondered if the protocol had any success with treating that.
Yes, we have several successful bladder cancer stories have come in.
Okay. That sounds good. Now, I was sitting here waiting to come on with you guys, and I was seeing that you were talking about the Pathway 1 with the frankincense, and that was a question that I'd asked on the Facebook page a day or so ago. Had anybody experienced any nausea when they took it?
Yeah, so we've actually... So we specifically reduce the terpenes that are in frankincense that are known to cause nausea, and those are mostly the monoterpenes, and the monoterpenes provide zero benefit for helping support health in people with cancer. So and that's all based upon the research of Dr. H.K. Lin out of the University of Oklahoma. So that's
So Adam, have you had reports of nausea with your Onco 1 product?
With the current product, no.
Okay.
No, we haven't. When we did have the monoterpenes in there, yes, it was rampant.
Okay, and when would they have been taken out? Because I think I bought mine a couple months ago.
Yeah, the one that from a couple months ago should not have any of the monoterpenes in it. So if you're getting stomach upset, it's not because of the monoterpenes. It would be from something else.
Yeah,
Okay.
and which is another point. We have about 10% of the people with fenbendazole report mild diarrhea and as a side effect. And I make the case that, well, if it's 10% and it's only 10%, how do you know that's what's causing it instead of something else that's causing it?
Sure. So, okay. Anthony, are you experiencing any kind of nausea related to the protocol?
Yes, and it seems to be. I can do the 2 and the 3 with my Fenben and just some regular CBD that I have bought locally. And I don't get the nausea, but when I do the Pathway 1 do the entire protocol, I feel nauseous.
So how many mLs of Pathway 1 are you using that when you're dosing with Pathway 1?
Well, if I do 1, which one ball, one squeeze of it, fill it up. I think it's 1 milliliter.
Yeah,
it's actually more than that, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I definitely get nauseous with that. I can some days I can drop it down and do like a half of a dropper, and I'll be okay. And then another day I'll get nauseous.
Wow, it's interesting.
Yeah, you're the first person that I've talked to that shared that having any kind of nausea with it. You can try reducing it.
Okay.
One ml of product is about 60 milligrams of cannabinoid. I think that's right. Let me. I always have to do the math here. It drives me nuts. Here we go. Give me 1 second.
While he's doing that, I'll do another question. Is there a website that shows people what all types of cancer have had success on the protocol? Yeah, the Facebook group itself.
62.
If you just Google the hashtag positive progress, you'll be pages and pages and pages. Now, separately onto the blog itself, we get reports in, but a long time ago, I had to stop
Updating that.
chasing those down and updating it because there's just too many to talk about.
So, Anthony, just to revisit the question, there's each ml of Pathway 1 is about 63 milligrams, 62.5 milligrams of cannabinoid. So you can, and that would be kind of like the minimum that you'd want to get. So you can divide that out into, half of a ml twice a day to see if that reduces the nausea and provides any kind of benefit for you. And if it
Okay.
continues not to work for you, just give us a call. We gladly refund you your purchase. We don't want you to have to suffer through using something that's just causing you distress.
Okay. One other quick question, and then I'll go. Do you think this would have any effect on the BCG treatments I'm receiving from my urologist?
BCG is a great approach, and there's nothing contraindicated with BCG and what's on Joe's protocols, as from what we know.
Okay. All right. Sounds very good.
Hey.
You said half a milliliter twice a day.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
See if that helps. See if
Sounds
that
good.
makes it tolerable for you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye.
You're welcome. Wow, we've had it's been an hour, Joe. We've been on. Does it seem like an hour?
No, it doesn't actually.
Is there anything else you'd like to kind of share based upon the protocol and anything recent?
No, I'm rocking and rolling and flunking retirement and having fun. So, I think again, everybody needs to preach the story that even if there's naysayers out there and non-believers, we've got tons and tons of evidence that they're wrong. And secondly, one thing we do know is the downside risk of all of this to the body. Rule number one of medicine is don't make it worse.
Yeah.
And we know that the downside risk here is virtually zero. So anybody considering doing this, you just keep in mind that it at least it's not going to make you worse at the worst case. So.
Well, we're grateful to be an adjunctive part of your team, Joe, and being able to provide products that hopefully improve the health of people that take them.
Well, I'm glad I stumbled onto you guys because I was looking all over the world for this, for exactly what you're doing.
And it happened to be in Oklahoma, of all places.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy.
So, feel free to give us a call. We're always here to answer questions. I also wanted to mention something I think is important. We do, if anybody is on fixed income, in other words, on Social Security, and they have limited resources or means, we do have a program that provides the Pathway 1, 2, and 3 products at a significantly reduced price. So if that's your situation, please don't be shy about giving us a call. We're glad to be able to provide reduced pricing to people that are living either on fixed income or no income, for that matter. So the way that you get in touch with us is either through email. You can email me, adam@ultrabotanica.com, or call us directly at 405-694-4175 and dial extension 7002 to talk to one of our sales associates.
Perfect. Have a good day, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, and we'll probably come back in 6 months or so.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye now.